Marcus Reed had already reached the counter when the bell over the door went silent. The hardware store smelled like oil and dust and old wood, like a place that hadn't changed in decades. Sunlight cut through the front windows in pale stripes, catching on rows of paint cans and rusted tools. Marcus held the invoice in his hand, fingers tight, shoulders squared the way he'd learned to keep them. The owner looked up slowly. His eyes didn't go to the paper. They went to Marcus's skin, then to his jacket, then to the way Marcus stood, calm, patient, waiting. "We don't serve people like you," the man said, voice low but steady, like he'd practiced that sentence his whole life. The words landed harder than a shove. A few customers froze. One woman pretended to study a shelf. Someone coughed. No one spoke. Marcus felt the heat rise in his chest, sharp and familiar. He thought of his father teaching him how to stay quiet to survive. He thought of the job site waiting on supplies. He thought of how many times silence had been mistaken for weakness. "I'm paying cash," Marcus said, carefully. The owner smiled, thin and mean. "You can take your business somewhere else. This is my store." A phone camera lifted somewhere behind Marcus. The red recording light blinked on. The owner leaned forward, resting his hands on the counter, and said softly, clearly, for everyone to hear, "You don't belong here." Marcus didn't move. Outside, a police siren wailed in the distance, then cut off, abrupt, unfinished. And in that unfinished sound, everything was about to change. Marcus Reed stepped into Hargreave Hardware at 9:12 a.m., and the bell above the door announced him like a warning. The sound was sharp in the quiet store. Too loud. Heads turned. Marcus felt it immediately. The shift, the pause, the subtle recalculation that always came before trouble. He adjusted his grip on the folded invoice and walked toward the counter, boots echoing softly against the concrete floor. Behind the counter stood Calvin Hargreave, gray-haired, broad-shouldered, his name stitched in red on a faded work shirt. He looked up slowly, eyes narrowing just enough to register recognition without warmth. Marcus placed the invoice down. "Morning. I'm here to pick up the lumber and fixtures. Order should be under Reed Construction." Hargreave didn't touch the paper. Instead, he leaned back, crossed his arms, and scanned Marcus from head to toe. The look wasn't curious. It was assessing, like Marcus was a problem he hadn't decided how to handle yet. "Yeah," Hargreave said. "We don't do that." Marcus blinked once. "Do what?" "Business," Hargreave replied. "With you." The words were calm. That was the part that hurt the most. Calm meant certainty. Calm meant this wasn't new. A man near the paint aisle shifted his weight. Someone else pretended to check their phone. The store felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier. Marcus kept his voice even. "The order was confirmed yesterday. I've got the invoice right here." Hargreave smiled faintly. "I don't care what you've got." Silence spread. It pressed against Marcus's ears, against his chest. He thought of his father's voice, low and tired, telling him when to walk away. He thought of his crew waiting at the site, expecting materials that now didn't exist. "I'm paying cash," Marcus said. "Today." Hargreave's smile sharpened. "You can take that cash somewhere else." Marcus glanced around, meeting eyes that slid away from his. No one stepped forward. No one asked a question. "Is there a problem with my order?" Marcus asked. Hargreave leaned forward, palms flat on the counter. "The problem is you." A woman near the door inhaled sharply. A phone lifted behind Marcus, unnoticed, its camera steady. Marcus felt the familiar burn behind his ribs, the instinct to react, to raise his voice, to demand respect. He swallowed it. He'd learned the price of that lesson early. "This is a public business," Marcus said. "And this is my store," Hargreave replied. "I decide who belongs here." The word belong landed like a verdict. Marcus gathered the invoice slowly, hands steady despite the tremor in his chest. For a moment, he considered saying more. For a moment, he imagined what justice might sound like if spoken out loud. Instead, he nodded once. "Understood," he said. He turned and walked toward the door. The bell rang again as he stepped outside, sunlight blinding after the dim interior. His truck sat in the lot, waiting, empty. Behind him, laughter broke out, short, relieved, misplaced. Marcus stood still, staring at the windshield, unaware that somewhere behind him, a recording was already uploading. Marcus slammed the truck door harder than he meant to. The sound echoed across the job site, metal snapping shut against morning air. Dust lifted into the foundation where his crew waited, tools idle, work paused. They all looked up at once. "You good?" Donnell called out. Marcus didn't answer right away. He leaned against the truck, palms pressed to the hood, head bowed for half a second longer than necessary. Then he straightened. "No," he said. "We're not." Donnell frowned. "What happened?" "They wouldn't sell to me," Marcus replied. A pause. "Who wouldn't?" asked Lewis. "Hargreave Hardware." The name moved through the group like a bad smell. "For real?" Donnell said. "Again." Marcus looked at him. "Again." Donnell hesitated, then shrugged. "You know, same old." Marcus felt something sink in his chest. "Say that again." Lewis wiped sweat from his forehead. "Man, come on. Everybody knows how that place is." Marcus stared at them. "You're telling me this is normal?" Silence answered him. Not denial, not surprise, just acceptance. Donnell finally spoke. "I mean, yeah, they do it quiet. Prices change. Orders get lost. Depends who's standing at the counter." Marcus exhaled slowly. "And nobody says anything." Lewis spread his hands. "What are we supposed to say?" Marcus didn't respond. He turned back to the truck, popped the hood without needing to, just have something to do. "So what now?" Donnell asked. "We go somewhere else," Marcus said. "We pay more. We lose time." "That ain't right," Donnell muttered. Marcus closed the hood. "It's familiar." They worked with borrowed supplies that morning. Progress slow and uneven. Marcus kept seeing the counter. The way Hargreaves' hands rested like he owned the air itself. By noon, his phone wouldn't stop vibrating. His sister Renee's name lit up the screen. "You seen this?" she demanded the second he answered. "Seen what?" "Don't play with me, Marcus." A link followed, then another, then 10 more. Marcus stepped away from the crew and tapped the first video. The camera angle was behind him, his back, his shoulders, the invoice in his hand. Hargreaves' voice came through clear as glass. "We don't serve people like you." Marcus closed his eyes. The comments scrolled faster than he could read. "This is disgusting. Private business. His rules. Why didn't the customer just leave? Racism is alive and well." Renee's voice was tight. "It's everywhere. Facebook, TikTok, local groups. News tagged it already." Marcus leaned against the fence. "I didn't even know someone was filming." "Doesn't matter now." "I didn't ask for this," he said quietly. "I know," Renee replied, "but it's here, and people are watching." Marcus watched the replay. The moment Hargreave leaned forward, the moment Marcus chose restraint over explosion. "They're gonna twist it," Marcus said. "Say I provoked him." "They already are," Renee said, "but they are also listening." He scoffed. "Listening for what?" "For you," she said. "Your voice." Marcus looked out at the site, at his crew pretending not to stare at their phones. "I just wanted to buy lumber," he said. "I know," Renee said, "but it wasn't just about you. It never is." A notification popped up. Local 7 News wants to speak with Marcus Reed. Marcus laughed once, sharp and humorless. That was fast. "They'll want a statement," Renee said. "You need to decide how much of yourself you're willing to give." "I don't want to be a symbol." Too late. Marcus ended the call and stared at the screen. Another video auto-played. Someone stitching the clip with commentary, outrage layered over his silence. He felt exposed, misunderstood, seen and unseen at the same time. Donnell approached cautiously. "You okay, boss?" Marcus slipped the phone into his pocket. "We'll finish today," he said. "However we can." Donnell nodded. "For what it's worth. I'm glad someone caught it." Marcus met his eyes. "So am I," he said, surprising himself. That night, Marcus sat alone in his apartment, the city humming outside. The video played on his TV. Pause on Hargreaves' face mid-sentence. Marcus whispered into the quiet. "You thought nobody would notice." On the screen, the red recording light glowed, and it didn't turn off. The news van parked outside Hargreave Hardware before sunrise. Marcus saw it on his phone while brushing his teeth. Foam clinging to his jaw as a reporter rehearsed lines into a camera. The storefront sat behind her, unchanged. Same peeling paint, same faded flag in the window. It looked calm, innocent, even. He muted the video. By 9 a.m., the town had chosen its language. Misunderstanding. Both sides. Tempers flared. Marcus sat at his kitchen table, coffee untouched, listening to a radio segment where a local host chuckled softly and said, "We all know Calvin. His old school. Old school. Like it was a style choice. Like it wasn't a line drawn through Marcus's chest." His phone rang again. Unknown number. Marcus Reed, a man asked. "Yes. This is Calvin Hargreaves' attorney. We'd like to clarify some things before this gets out of hand." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "It's already out of hand." A pause. "My client maintains that he reserves the right to refuse service." "For what reason?" "For conduct." Marcus laughed quietly. "What conduct?" "You were confrontational," the attorney said smoothly. "My client felt threatened." Marcus closed his eyes. "I asked to buy lumber." "We advise you to be careful with public statements," the man continued. "Defamation works both ways." The line went dead. Marcus stayed at the phone, his reflection warped in the dark screen. Threatened. The word clung to him like smoke. By afternoon, City Hall filled faster than it had in years. The council meeting had been moved to the main chamber due to public interest. Folding chairs lined the walls. Cameras crowded the aisles. Marcus took a seat in the back, hoodie pulled low, wishing briefly he'd stayed home. A councilwoman tapped her microphone. "Let's maintain order and respect." Respect. The room hummed with it, thin and brittle. Calvin Hargreaves sat near the front, suit jacket stiff, jaw clenched. He didn't look at Marcus. Not once. "We are here to discuss concerns raised by recent events." The mayor said, hands folded. "This town values fairness." A man stood up. "My family's been shopping at Hargreaves for 30 years. Never had a problem." Applause followed. Polite. Affirming. Another voice chimed in. "Private businesses have rights." More applause. Marcus felt Renee's hand squeeze his knee. "Breathe," she whispered. A woman near the aisle stood. "I worked there for 2 years." The room stilled. "They told me which customers to slow walk," she said. "Which ones to double check. Which ones to tell we were out of stock." Murmurs rippled. Calvin shifted in his seat. The mayor cleared his throat. "We can't verify those claims." The woman's face tightened. "You didn't ask." Marcus stood before he planned to. The room turned toward him, lenses lifting, whispers swelling. "My name is Marcus Reed," he said. His voice didn't shake. He was almost disappointed by that. "I didn't come here to be a symbol. I came to buy supplies for my business." Someone scoffed. "I was told I didn't belong," Marcus continued. "That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was a decision." Calvin finally looked at him then. His eyes were cold, defensive. The mayor leaned forward. "Mr. Reed, we appreciate your feelings, but—" "Feelings?" Marcus interrupted. The word tasted wrong. This wasn't about feelings. This was about power. The room went quiet. "Power decides who gets served," Marcus said. "Who gets believed. Who get protected." Calvin stood abruptly. "This is a witch hunt." Marcus turned to him. "You didn't deny it." Calvin's face reddened. "I don't owe you anything." The councilwoman tapped her MIC again. "Order." Marcus sat back down. His heart pounded now, loud enough to hear. Outside, reporters swarmed as soon as the meeting adjourned. "Marcus," someone called, "do you feel justice was served today?" He stopped walking. Cameras rushed closer. "No," Marcus said. "I feel clarity." "What do you mean?" "I mean the system worked exactly how it was designed to," he replied. "Just not for me." That clip ran on every local channel that night. Calvin released a statement shortly after. Hargreave Hardware has always upheld community standards and denies any allegation of discrimination. Community standards. Marcus read the words 3 times, then closed his laptop. From his window, he could see the glow of the town below. Porch lights, street lamps, places where people felt they belonged without question. He sat in the dark and realized something settled into place. This wasn't one bad man. It was 1,000 quiet approvals. And tomorrow, more people would choose sides. The first message came at 6:42 a.m. Marcus was halfway through tying his boots when his phone buzzed against the floor. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Almost. But something told him not to. I work for him. If you're talking to a lawyer, so am I. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed and typed back slowly. Who is this? Name's Denise Walker. Hargreave Hardware. 2018 to 2021. He stared at the screen. Then another message came in. And another. Different names. Different numbers. Same pattern. By 8 o'clock, Marcus had a list. Renee sat across from him at the kitchen table, her laptop open, legal pad stacked beside her. This is how it always starts, she said. One crack. Oh, one trap, Marcus replied. Renee shook her head. These people aren't chasing attention. They are scared. Denise called that afternoon. I kept my mouth shut because I needed a job, she said, voice tight. But I remember him telling us to watch certain customers. Did he say what that meant? Marcus asked. Denise exhaled. He didn't have to. Another former employee described being told to follow black customers through the aisles. Another said returns were denied without explanation. A contractor explained how his account was suddenly closed after he complained about pricing. Marcus listened, took notes, asked questions. He didn't interrupt. By the time he hung up, his chest felt heavy, not with anger, but with confirmation. This wasn't about him. That evening, Marcus sat in a downtown office with Attorney Paul Whitaker, a civil rights litigator whose walls were lined with framed verdicts and quiet warnings. Paul skimmed the notes. This is strong, he said, but strength doesn't guarantee speed. Marcus nodded. What does it guarantee? Push back, Paul replied, and pressure. On you. Renee leaned forward. What about the business? Paul folded his hands. Discrimination claims scale lenders, suppliers, insurers. So money talks, Marcus said. Always has, Paul answered. But understand this, you won't be rewarded for being right. You will be tested for being persistent. Outside the office, the air was cold. Marcus pulled his jacket tighter. Do you still want to do this? Renee asked gently. Marcus thought of the counter, the smile, the word belong. Yes, he said. I don't want the next person wondering if they imagined it. The backlash came faster than the support. A supplier canceled Marcus's account pending review. A longtime client postponed the contract. Anonymous emails slid into his inbox, polite but pointed. Why stir trouble? This town takes care of its own. You should have just left. At the same time, donations poured into a legal fund he hadn't asked for. A church offered meeting space. A retired teacher dropped off a handwritten note that said simply, "Thank you for not backing down." Marcus felt stretched thin, pulled between gratitude and exhaustion. On Thursday, another story broke. Multiple former employees accused local hardware store of discriminatory practices. Calvin Hargreave appeared on camera that night, jaw clenched, eyes defiant. This is a coordinated attack, he said. I'm being punished for speaking my mind. Marcus watched from his couch, arms crossed. You're being exposed, he murmured. The next morning, Paul called. Banks are asking questions, he said. Suppliers too. Marcus closed his eyes. So what happens now? Paul paused. Now we see who's been keeping receipts. Marcus looked at the folder on his table. Names, dates, patterns. For the first time since the bell rang over that door, he felt something shift. Not relief, momentum. And somewhere across town, Calvin Hargreave was starting to realize that silence, once his shield, had become his liability. Calvin Hargreave stopped sleeping through the night. Marcus learned that from a supplier who called him by mistake. I meant to dial Hargreave, the man said awkwardly, then hesitated. Hell, maybe this is who I should be talking to anyway. Marcus stood in the parking lot outside a job site, wind cutting through his jacket. About what? The man lowered his voice. His frantic, calling at all hours, asking if we're pulling out. Are you? Marcus asked. A pause. We already did. When the call ended, Marcus didn't smile. He felt the pressure moving, quiet, invisible, effective, the way systems actually worked. By Friday, Hargreave hardware shelves were half empty. Customers noticed. So did the town. A woman confronted Calvin at the counter. Why are the prices higher? Calvin snapped back. Supply issues. Another customer muttered. Funny how that started this week. Marcus heard about it from everywhere. Texts, calls, screenshot of Facebook posts where people argued in circles. Cancel culture is out of control. Actions have consequences. He built that business from nothing. So did Marcus. The last comment had thousands of likes. Still, the cost found Marcus too. His bank requested updated financials. A contractor pulled out of a joint bid. His insurance provider sent a letter marked review pending. Renee found him sitting at the kitchen table, head in his hands. You didn't do this, she said. I know, Marcus replied, but I'm paying for it. She slid her phone across the table. Look. A screenshot of an email circulated online. If you keep pushing, don't expect this town to keep supporting you. Marcus closed his eyes. They never supported me. That afternoon, a pickup truck slowed in front of his house. Didn't stop, just slowed. The message was clear enough. Marcus called Paul. This is the part they don't film, Marcus said. Paul's voice was steady. Document everything. And don't be alone tonight. Across town, Calvin Hargreave was unraveling in public. At a press conference held outside his store, he jabbed a finger toward reporters. This is extortion, he shouted. They want to destroy me. A reporter asked, Did you deny service to Mr. Reed? Calvin glared. I denied disrespect. What disrespect? Another voice pressed. Calvin faltered. Just for a second. That's not the point, he snapped. I'm the victim here. The clip went viral within the hour. Marcus watched it in silence. Renee sat beside him. He really believes that, she said. He believes power is a shield, Marcus replied. He's never had it questioned. The next blow came quietly. Calvin's bank froze his credit line. His accountant advised him to explore exit options. A realtor's sign appeared in the hardware store window. Business opportunity. The town pretended not to notice. At a diner, Marcus overheard two men talking. He should just sell and move on, one said. Yeah. The other replied, Make this go away. Marcus turned in his booth. Make what go away? They froze, embarrassed. The problem, the first man muttered. Marcus nodded. That's what I thought. That night, Marcus sat on his porch, the hum of insects filling the dark. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You don't know what you're messing with. Marcus typed back. I know exactly what I'm messing with. He put the phone down and breathed. Across town, Calvin Hargreave sat alone in his office, staring at spreadsheets that no longer balanced. The walls that once made him feel untouchable now felt close. He dialed his lawyer. I might need to sell, Calvin said. The words tasted like defeat. When the call ended, Calvin stared at the store, his store, and felt something he'd never felt before. Small. Marcus didn't hear about the call until the next morning. Paul's voice carried a note of something new. They're negotiating. Marcus leaned back against his truck, eyes on the rising sun. About what? The business, Paul said. A sale. Quiet. Fast. Marcus closed his eyes. The pressure was working. But pressure always left marks. And Marcus knew, whatever happened next, there would be no victory without a cost. The for sale sign went up at Hargreave Hardware before the sun touched the roofline. Bright yellow letters on a faded board slotted into the patch of dirt outside the cracked sidewalk. Calvin Hargreave stood beside it, tie loosened, face pale under the morning light. He didn't look at the camera when reporters snapped photos, didn't answer questions from the few loyal customers who still showed up. His hands rested on the counter like he'd lost the ability to move them elsewhere. Across town, Marcus watched the coverage from his office window. The familiar hum of trucks and saws drifted up from the site below. He didn't feel satisfaction. Not really. Just acknowledgement. A quiet confirmation that change, however small, had begun. A reporter's voice cut through the muted video. After mounting pressure, Hargreave Hardware has announced a sale of the business. The new owners promise a fresh start for the community. Calvin's lawyer leaned in, whispering numbers and deadlines. Calvin barely heard him. The word force hung heavy, though no one dared say it aloud. The town's papers framed it differently. Business decision after market pressures. A euphemism hiding the moral weight of what had happened. Inside, Calvin's office smelled of stale coffee and old wood, the same smell Marcus had inhaled months ago. Only now, though it seemed oppressive, the walls that had held authority and control now enclosed him like a cell. Marcus walked past the site later that afternoon. The for sale sign caught his eye, swaying slightly in the wind. He felt a tug of ambivalence. Justice was served, yet the scars of the public humiliation lingered. Renee nudged him softly. "You okay?" "I think so," he said. "It's over, but it's not the kind of over anyone forgets." The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the lot. Inside, the empty shells whispered of power lost, of silence broken, and of the cost that came with refusing to be invisible. Marcus exhaled, letting the tension slide off his shoulders. There was victory here, yes, but it was tempered. Real life, he knew, always left marks. And somewhere in the town, Calvin Hargreave stared at the for sale sign with disbelief, realizing that his control had evaporated faster than he could reckon, leaving only the consequences he'd ignored for decades. Marcus sat under the bright studio lights, the hum of cameras and microphones pressing into his chest. The anchor's smile was polite, rehearsed, professional, yet it carried an invisible weight, the expectation that he perform anger, forgiveness, or a mixture of both. He adjusted the MIC clip to his collar and exhaled slowly. Renee leaned beside him, her hand brushing his shoulder. "Just tell them what happened," she whispered. "No more, no less." The camera rolled. "Marcus Reed, thank you for joining us. This story has captured national attention. How are you feeling after what happened at Hargreave Hardware?" Marcus straightened. "I'm aware of how it looks, and how people want to frame it, but I'm not here to perform. I'm here to tell the truth." The anchor nodded, slightly startled by the tone. "Go on." "I went to buy supplies for my business. I was told I didn't belong. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was a choice, a decision made with full awareness." Silence filled the studio for a moment before the anchor pressed on. "And the sale of the business, does that feel like justice?" Marcus paused, letting the words settle. "Justice isn't a moment. It's a process. The sale shows consequences exist, but it doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't erase the fear, the humiliation, the pattern that allowed it to happen." A producer nudged him gently. "Do you want to add anything personal?" Marcus looked straight into the lens. "I've lost more than a few hours, more than a few dollars, and some trust in people I thought I could count on. But I haven't lost my voice. That's why I speak. Not for revenge, not for applause, but so the next person knows they are not invisible." The anchor blinked, impressed, struggling to steer the conversation toward a softer ending. Marcus refused to soften it. His tone didn't waver. After the segment, he walked off the stage, Renee close behind. No cameras, no scripts, just silence. "I thought it would feel lighter," Marcus admitted, the studio walls now behind him. "It never does," Renee said. "This is how change works, incrementally, painfully, publicly." He nodded. Outside, the sun was low, reflecting off the street in streaks of gold. People passed, some stopping briefly to offer smiles, nods, or quiet acknowledgement. Marcus noticed the subtle shifts, the way some avoided the usual cold stays, and how others still hesitated. He realized that even when the abuser was exposed, the emotional toll remained. The scars weren't gone. The anxiety, the frustration, the vigilance, it stayed. Marcus took a deep breath. "Still, it's necessary." "Always," Renee replied. They walked in silence toward the car, each step a reminder that justice, when owned, is rarely clean, easy, or free from consequence. Somewhere, Far from the studio, Calvin Hargreaves sat alone, pacing through the empty shelves of his former store, replaying every decision he'd made. His empire was gone, but the humiliation would linger far longer than the money he'd once held so tightly. Marcus didn't feel victorious. He felt steady, and in that steadiness there was a quiet kind of power. Marcus walked down Main Street, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows over the cracked sidewalks. The hardware store was gone, or at least the Hargreave name was. A fresh coat of paint covered the worn facade, and a modest New Horizons hardware sign swung gently in the wind. He paused, hands in his pockets, studying the shelves through the large glass windows. Inside, a young clerk greeted a black family with a smile. No hesitation, no judgment, just business as it should be. Marcus allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible nod. That was the change he'd fought for, subtle but undeniable. Still, the town felt different. Familiar streets now carried the weight of memory, the whispered conversations, the sideways glances, the quiet complicity he had endured for years. Some stores had signs up, support local businesses, everyone welcome. Others had nothing at all. Some people had changed, others had not. He stopped at the park, watching children play under the golden haze of street lamps and trees. Their laughter was free, unfiltered. He wondered how many of them would grow up seeing these small, systemic cracks, and whether they would recognize them when they appeared. Renee nudged him gently. "You've done more than most people would. You forced accountability." Marcus shook his head. "It's not over. Not really. Systems don't vanish overnight. But what remains is proof that resistance matters." A father jogged past with his daughter on his shoulders. Marcus caught her gaze, bright and curious. She smiled. He returned it. For a moment, the past heaviness lifted. Back at the job site, Marcus supervised quietly, checking measurements, offering instructions. The crew moved efficiently, and though the day was ordinary, the sense of possibility lingered. Some wounds heal slowly. Some scars never fade. But Marcus realized that witnessing justice, even partial, imperfect justice, was a balm against silence. The new store's open door glowed in the evening light, welcoming. The street hummed with life, tentative but resilient. Marcus exhaled. The fight had taken its toll, but what remained, the proof, the visibility, the small but undeniable shift, was enough to keep standing. Marcus stood at the edge of a construction site, the sun sinking behind the rooftops, painting the sky in streaks of amber and violet. The day's work was done, but his mind was still elsewhere. He thought of the months that had passed, the humiliation, the viral video, the council meeting, the endless calls, the threats, the moments of quiet victory. All of it. He ran a hand over the rough wood of a newly installed frame. Each groove, each splinter, reminded him of the cost he'd paid to hold his ground. Not just money, not just time, but the invisible scars left by people who believed they could decide who belonged and who didn't. Renee joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one and stood beside him silently, letting the wind carry away the tension in their shared quiet. "They are still talking," she said. "About you, about him, about the video." "I know," Marcus replied. "It doesn't matter anymore. The world saw it. That's enough." For a moment, he thought of Calvin Hargreave, pacing through the empty store he had once controlled. Power gone, authority dissolved. But Marcus also knew that seeing the downfall of one man did not erase the patterns, the attitudes, or the systems that had allowed it. Change was never simple. He turned back to the site, eyes scanning the workers, the equipment, the rising structure. It was progress, tangible, real, something he could control, something he could build brick by brick, even in a world that often tried to deny him that right. "You're stronger than you think," Renee said softly. "I had to be," Marcus replied. "I couldn't let them write the story without me in it." As night fell, the lights of the town flickered on, warm and steady. Marcus felt a quiet satisfaction, not the triumph of revenge, but the enduring power of resilience. He had faced the injustice, endured the scrutiny, and remained upright, still standing. The future was uncertain. There would be more obstacles, more moments when the world tested him. But he had learned something vital. The line between fear and strength is often drawn by those who refuse to be invisible. And Marcus Reed, no matter what, would never cross it again. He took a deep breath, the cool night air filling his lungs, and allowed himself a small, fleeting smile. For all the struggle, for all the cost, he was still here, still standing,